Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's Eric Coffin. It's July 22nd, 2020. I'm here with Chris Taylor, the CEO of Great Bear Resources. I just wanted to do, we've done a couple of earlier phone conversations, but I just wanted to do a Zoom kind of follow up. There's been a lot of data come in. There's a lot of people sort of looking at the LP as it grows and as you dump these huge piles of results on everybody. And people are just, I think everyone's trying to get their head around, okay, we've got these broad things, we've got these narrow things. Like, how does this fit together? If you were a company, a mining company looking at it, I mean, how would you go at looking at LP as something that's as a potential ore body or a potential mine? There's obviously a lot of different ways you can approach this. Can you give people some insights in terms of what someone looking at LP as a whole, what does this thing look like? How would somebody go forward with it?
Yeah, for sure, Eric. Like, there's a few things I could do. Like, we're actually doing a lot of data and analytical work right now. I could show you some actual Great Bear drill logs. That's probably of interest. I don't think we've
Okay.
ever showed those to anybody before, but you can look at it interval by interval and this kind of stuff. Also, just in the context, like, as you know, my background's in mining. Like, I worked in an open pit mine, and it gives you some insight on how a company would likely approach this thing. And it's really clear looking at the data that there's potential here for some type of bulk tonnage mining, and also the typical high grade underground type mining of the usual Red Lake camp or other similar deposits. So it's really both. That's why we really like it so much, is because it looks like it's going to be really flexible. And that flexibility is what's attracting. When we get feedback from big mining companies in conversation, it's one of the things they like the best about it, is because a find like this, like the Dixie, LP and the other zones, I mean, it would be flexible to get through any kind of mining cycle, like high gold prices, low gold prices. It's got kind of everything, right? So it would really be well insulated against different market developments. But anything like, I was actually looking at some data. Do you want me to show you a couple slides, or it's stuff I'm working on in progress? So you probably see variations of it in Great Bear presentations in the future. Okay. So I'll do a screen share, and this is kind of cool, actually. I don't know if you can see it, but I was just going through trying to explain to people basically open pit mining generally, and kind of grade distribution more specifically. And I was looking through Barrick's reports from Hemlo. And this is kind of cool. I don't know how much everybody loves graphics, but on the screen in front of you, you can see a histogram of material from the open pit. So, at Hemlo, there's a 1.5 grams open pit. And that's about, I think there's about 1.5 million ounces produced from this thing. And it gives everybody a pretty good idea when you're looking at it, the distribution of grades that they got in that 1.5 grams per ton kind of open pit. And if you look at it, like, everything's distributed kind of like a bell curve, right? So what's kind of cool here is that their cutoff is around 0.36 in their economic study. So that means everything on the left side of the curve is below their cutoff, and everything on the right side of the curve, basically gets blended together and made into ore. But you can see, looking at here, and Eric, I know you're totally familiar with this, but it's more for some of our retail non-mining guys that really, I think, would find this interesting. This is grade in grams per ton along this axis. So you can see that the center of mass off of all the data is going to be at about 0.5 gram per ton in that 1.5 grams per ton open pit. And basically, you need to take most of the material that you're going to be mining out is going to be put into a stockpile. You'd call it your low grade stockpile. And that's, you can see by the histogram, it's going to be 75% or more of the material. Then you're going to take a smaller amount of material sort of in a mid grade stockpile, put that over there. And then you're going to take a small amount of material that's higher grade, and you're going to make a small high grade stockpile. So low, medium, high. And then that's all going to blend together, and you're going to get like a head grade together of about 1.5 grams per ton. And that's what your mill is designed to run. So, this is the Hemlo open pit. It's a typical kind of 1.5 grams open pit. I won't comment on how similar or dissimilar that is to LP Fault. We obviously have a lot of drilling to do, but regardless of what the numbers are specifically along this axis. The distribution of grade is very much like every other kind of bulk tonnage deposit. And, you look at it like, you want to be able to figure out, again, what's your average grade, and then how you're going to blend material from all around this. And it's really similar. Like if you look at it like Canadian Malarkey, the majority of the material in that open pit, I believe, is about 0.6 or 0.7 grams. So something in that range. And then there's a bunch of material that's around 2 grams, and you blend it all together and it's just slightly over a gram on average. And that's, a $4 billion open pit acquisition. So when I look at this, really, the key here is that you're blending stockpiles of material together and you're making your head grade stuff. So,
and it's grade times volume that gives you the gold content. That's why it probably looks odd to people that aren't used to looking at these histograms, and they look at it and they go, well, all the material is at like half a gram. All the material is at half a gram, not all the ounces at half a gram. The ounces are the grade times the volume. So even though the ones on the right side are much shorter bars, they might actually contain more ounces per bar because of the grade.
That's right. Right. Your economics on that material is just so much better, because as you get further off on that side of the curve, it's an earth moving operation, right? So less margin per ton of material. So you want as much of this stuff as possible, right? More ounces, less moving.
Okay.
So that's kind of cool. And really, it's interesting in the gold environment right now. Like, what did gold peak at today? You probably had your eye on it more than I did.
I think it was about 1870. It was. I think.
Wow.
Yeah. It just went nuts. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is like, this is a few years old in this Hemlo report from Barrick. But I mean, at $1,800, gold's about $58 a gram, roughly. And, the studies that they used here, I think it's $1,500 US, an ounce that they have for a price. So, in current gold environments, I mean, I guess analysts are going to start using updated numbers the higher and longer it goes for. But the cool thing is, I mean, with current sort of numbers, if you're just ballparking this stuff, each gram and a half of material in that Hemlo open pit is worth about $116 Canadian.
Right.
So, and I love these charts. Like I used to work in a mine, and this is really like, it's what distinguishes an ore body from mineralization is really your kind of all-in costs. And the all-in cost for mining and processing material there is about $25 a ton. So if a ton of gram and a half material is worth $116, you got a pretty good margin on a per ton basis. And you can see underground, stacking up. The real difference is just it's more expensive to mine something on a per ton basis. And obviously something like Hemlo, which averages about 8.5 grams per ton, they're making lots of money, on a per ton basis. So, I mean, it's a cool way to look at it. But this is like, we've talked about this stuff before. Like these are sections from the LP fault, right? So, looking at this hole 118, I think this is the longest run that we had of really high grade material. And it's kind of cool. Like I'll show you this, and this is a summary because we actually had on the figure 2650, we showed about 40 meters of the actual grade distribution in the core. And you can see there, like, although there is some high grade material in a hole like this, like you've got there, it's about half a meter of about an ounce. I mean, you just read the numbers as you go along here, right? So, if you think about blending material together and making, something like a homogenized head grade, I mean, this would be a hell of a head grade. So, I mean, whatever that ran, it was like 104 meters of 2.67 grams, in that hole. So, but, we see this, if you want to look at it, maybe I'll just switch screens for a second. So if I switch screens and I go to, like, if you look at the actual drill log, it's pretty interesting. So this is hole 118's actual drill log. So this is a real Great Bear drill log. We don't generally show these, but I think this is good for discussion purposes.
This was an HRA world exclusive, everybody.
Yeah, exactly. So it shows you how we actually record the information, the downhole surveys, how they're done, like the hole deviations and what have you. You can see the table in the image here. this is like automatically generated. We have a computer program set up that automatically pulls these intervals. We don't actually have human eyes on it. And this is what we discussed before. Like, we had to figure out before we even really undertook the program what the, what would be the situation for calculating cutoffs and intervals. And we
Right.
decided, because it was super obvious that we had a big bulk tonnage kind of scenario, whether that's block caving, open pitting, I don't know yet. It's just a new discovery, early days. We decided that if there was less than 0.1 grams per ton gold over more than 3 meters, we couldn't run interval through it. And the computer just knows that, and it just spits out numbers based on, various calculations. So you can see the numbers here, like 104 meters of 2.67 grams. That's generated by the computer. You can see the location of the drill hole there. And within that interval, there's nothing more than 3 meters of waste, basically. So, you can look down in the core here. It's just repeating that information. But this is kind of cool. So right from collar, you can see that you're already above that cutoff, because there's a massive plume of low-grade mineralization that surrounds the zones that we typically disclose. And we don't usually get into detail on that because it's not that important here or there for just generally everybody being able to follow, but you can see it in here. So, basically, but look at the distribution of grade, as you run down a column. So you could see from to sample numbers, width, and you can see grade going along, ramping up towards a zone. These are standards and blanks. I know you know what these are, so I feel
you've
like
got standard blanks and duplicates that are part of the QA/QC process to tell you back check on your lab.
Anyway, you can see these ones passed. Look, there's a nice passing duplicate. So anyway, and then the columns here are interesting because that's your fire assay grade, which is your standard gold assay, and here's your gravimetric assay on anything that comes back with over 10 grams per ton initially. Sometimes you get variation. The gravimetric slightly below 10, but this is typical. But you can see going down, interval after interval, how you get the grade distributed within holes. So walking through here, you can see you're still within one run. We haven't had any 3 meter or more, runs of under 0.1 grams. Right. You can see that going through. Now we're down at 60 odd meters. So here's a blank. That's why it's got no value. There's another one, blank, no value. But you get intervals like holes like this. It's just remarkably consistent, and the holes will vary along strike on the LP from something like this where the gold is basically uniformly distributed to places where the gold is more concentrated within intervals. And you can see here, now I'm coming out of the tail of my interval. So 87 meters or whatever it is here. And now you're basically in just slightly anomalous rock, and you can see that going down the hole. And then it starts picking up again. So here around 107 meters, I can see it starting to pick up. And then look, the grade is gradually increasing. Here's a run that doesn't hold together. And then it's basically starting up again. And you can see going through hole 118, just below a gram, over 0.1, running through here, and then back into it. So these are individual assays within another high grade portion of it, another zone that we disclose separately. So like 4, 2, 2, 130, 57, 25, 53, 38, 3, 16, and then tailing 25, 13, half a gram. It has to catch up to the text, and you can see it trailing. It doesn't end. It just, kind of fades out as it goes down. And then you can see wide intervals of this. If you think about the histogram from Hemlo for open pittable, remember, this would be very shallow compared to most other deposits. You're clearly looking at this really wide zone, and the gold just keeps going and going and going and going and going. So, we could take it down, then you're out of the zone. Right. And you're going to go down the hole and you're going to see additional zones pop up, but you can tell you're out of it because we're not seeing the mineralization anymore. Right. So anyway, I can go down throughout the remainder of the hole once it's in the mafic volcanics, and it's really of no use. But I wanted to show you what the internal distribution on a drill hole can actually look like. Okay. So
cool. Can you just show us sorry. Can you just show us what you got in terms of the kind of model stuff. I know that you've got some of that in. I know you've got some of that in your PowerPoint where you're sort of showing the other deposits and what basically what it looks like. Can you kind of give us a quick view of that?
Yeah,
What,
yeah.
because I know you don't have sort of histograms yet, but you have that where you've at least done I guess scatter plots is what you've got.
Yeah, like we were doing some work with CIBC Capital Markets recently. So this is our VP Corporate Development, Callum Morrison, and he has a number of banking contacts that he's been working with, and we've been preparing material. These are not ready to go yet, but they're basically beginning drafts of some of the comparative work. So this is pretty cool. This is a comparison of the drill results that we've published so far from the LP fault, not the hinge zone, not the Dixie Limb zone, just LP fault gold results. And this is versus the last 10 years of reported results from the Red Lake gold mine under Gold Corp for the majority of that time. And this is a cool scatter plot because the red line is really just arbitrary. We just popped a line on there for no reason. But you can see in gray the results that have been published by at the Red Lake gold mine, the big mine, 25 million ounces of high grade gold produced. And you can see the blue dots are ours. Now, you want to be in this part of the plot. Up in the top right corner, you're basically standing on a stack of gold bars. So you can see reading the x-axis here, this is 10 meters wide, this is 100 meters wide, this is 1 meter wide, here's 1,000 meters wide. Well, we haven't drilled any 1,000-meter wide intervals yet. We haven't been orienting holes that way. And then here's 10 centimeters wide, right, in terms of results. So you can see if you had to kind of pick a center of mass on the gray dots, it's probably here, kind of 1 to 2 meters. That would be in about the middle of the population, maybe around a meter. A meter of somewhere around 10 grams per ton is probably about the average that they've produced, over the last 10 years would be about typical for that mine. And, like if you do narrow sampling intervals, you'll get, 20 centimeter, 30 centimeter, 40 centimeter wide, intervals. The minimum that we do is half a meter. So we never generate data like that anyway. And you can see that in here, but you can see the distribution of gold is basically exactly on the LP fault, exactly like the distribution in the main Red Lake gold mine, which is funny because the market still thinks of the LP fault as a low grade, bulk tonnage system. But the difference between these two guys, and just to delete a bunch of this stuff, is you notice that if you're looking at a population of blue dots there, there are no gray dots in this area. And these are intervals approaching like 100 meters width of, here's a gram and here's 10 grams, So, this is a whole population of really kind of bulk tonnage, really nice grading, bulk tonnage, shallow to surface mineralization at the LP fault, which is simply not present at the Red Lake gold mine. If I didn't know anything about these deposits, but I was looking at this data, I would prefer the LP data over the Red Lake gold mine data because it exposes me to all the high grade potential of the Red Lake gold mine in this data set. And it also exposes me to this broad intervals of, broad intervals of 10 grams, that's high grade, but, high to moderate grades, so it's really a nice looking data set that you're looking at here. And another one that's pretty cool, actually, early work that we're doing. This is Malarkey. And Malarkey gets brought up a lot because it's big. It was, the key point here is, I'm writing wrong, but it's a $4 billion acquisition, basically. And it's a 12 million ounce, 1 gram per ton open pit. You can see part of the LP fault in the red and the same size over, the Malarkey pit, which is about 3.5 kilometers long. You have more strike length drilled at the LP fault so far than that pit per se. And then the total Malarkey system, which includes, they're trying to put together these sort of underground higher grade. I wouldn't call it high grade, like 2.8 grams over 2.2 meters, 2.8 grams over 6 meters. Here's some better stuff, 7 grams over 31 meters. I think that's the best hole in the set. 3 grams over 3.2 meters, including 5 over 2, 2 grams over 18 meters. So they're trying to put together higher grade underground mineable material underground around there too, which is quite interesting. You can see on us, our total target is basically the structural fabric is straight up and down. So there's a big panel, whereas here you can model it all up as sort of a skinnier rectangle on an angle. Anyway, but the bottom line is comparing these two systems together. It's really interesting. This is the underground drilling that they're doing at Malarkey, trying to put together. You notice it's narrower intervals of better grading mineralization. There's lots of material between 1 and 10 grams. You saw that in the highlighted intervals that they were producing. And then of course, in the open pit portion, they have a lot of material sort of in this range, and that's what they're looking at. This effectively was the basis of the big $4 billion acquisition, was this material here. Now the difference, if you're looking at Dixie, and this is just LP fault data in red here, we have an entire population of high grade material which is totally absent at Malarkey. So these are these really high grade results that we've talked about already. And then we also have what they have. You can see the overlap in the data. We have a whole, additional population of, these really big intervals of mineralization, higher grade intervals, big higher grade intervals. And then of course, like populations of data that they just don't have as well, which are the wider, higher grade intervals over Malarkey. Again, if I were given these two data sets to compare together, you would choose the LP fault data set in all cases because it's just a better looking scatter plotted data. So, this is how we show the distribution of grade, how it's coming together. Again, we're probably about 150 holes into the LP fault so far, and we're about a year into the drilling, just slightly over a year right now. We're getting into our biggest drill program to date. So this is going to be, we've got 5 rigs going right now simultaneously. We have on the disclosed information, I think there's about 180 holes that we still need to drill.
Just to kind of summarize this, it's pretty interesting when you look at the grade distributions. It's pretty obvious you've got a very broad set of grade distributions here. There's a lot of different ways whoever is going to mine this could go at it. They can obviously, they can take their pick if they're not into open pits. They deal with the underground. Maybe it's bulk, maybe it's block cave. Who the hell knows? But there's definitely a lot of ways you can do this. I can certainly see potential how you do a bunch of pits along the greater LP fault system, where the holes aren't going to be too big and unsightly, but you still get most of it out. People can take their pick. Now, the last release you put out was just that you sort of stepped back up to 5 rigs, like you said, your post-COVID restrictions. Do you think you're going to go beyond that? Is that, I know part of this is just not getting in your own way and staying on top of it. It should be obvious from what people saw there with some of these drill logs. It's pretty labor intensive the way you guys handle core and sample and take measurements. Is it just, are you just getting to the point where there's just too many people trying to deal with stuff at the same time, and you're literally getting in your own way in the camp and the core shacks? Or is it realistic to kind of up the drill count at some later date?
Yeah, we can actually add capacity, Eric. We are always careful that we're data driven, right? So, it could be a matter of, if I threw 20 rigs at it tomorrow, we'd be ahead of the data. But there is capacity to increase it. And that's part of our discussion process all the time is how big, how soon, how quickly, how it dovetails with all the analytical work. If you could see under the hood of Great Bear, you'd see all the modeling that's going on right now. It's very cool. So that's the kind of thing I really look forward to giving to the market when we're ready to talk about it. And but there's definitely room to increase the capacity. We certainly have the funding for it as well. So we just got back up to 5 rigs last week, I believe. So we'll digest some of that, start banging through. We're piling up core at a prodigious rate right now. So we'll get through some of these results, get them out to the market, and then we'll have some announcements around sort of longer term plans and program changes, expansions, that kind of thing.
Okay, and I guess we can probably expect news again in a few days. I mean, you seem to be shoving results out every couple of weeks. With
I can't say neither here
yeah,
nor there. It would be logical that there would be a release sometime in the near future because we don't like to let it pile up too much. And we've actually been busy on the analytical and planning side recently. The last couple of weeks, it's been time that we needed to get a few things done on the modeling side, but it's been really really productive.
okay. And like you said, that's something that we'll all be looking at in due course at some point when you've got it ready. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted to thank you for coming on. I know I know how busy you are. I know you've got a lot of people trying to grab your time these days, but I think I think it was useful for people to see the way you deal with drill holes, and I think it was probably even more useful for people to see, and it just at a very big picture level, the different ways you can approach LP, and of course, hinge and limb, and those all come in. They're a little bit different because they're probably more straight up underground, but there's a lot of different ways you can sort of attack this as a mining problem, and it gives you a pretty good sense of the valuation. And I thought those scatter diagrams are particularly useful because it does give people a sense of, you know, just in the big picture, the whole set of drill results. How does LP look compared to this, compared to that? I think people should have a better, sort of be able to get their arms around it now, and you see why you're excited about it, and see why it already has the market cap it does. It's not. There's a reason why people keep buying the stock at $18 and $20. It's not random.
Yeah, we're getting just the feedback I'm getting from all kinds of parties. I think there's general buy-in that we very likely have a tier one type discovery on our hands, and that's been a long time since a new tier one has been found. So it's filling in nicely, it's expanding nicely, and it'll be really fun over the next few months with the upsized program that we've got going on now and the future plans. So yeah, I look forward to talking to you again soon, Eric, because these are great back and forth chats for sure.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks for coming on. Thanks for the update, and I'm looking forward to tons and tons more news that I know is coming. And Great Bear's been a fantastic ride so far, and I'm pretty sure the ride isn't over. And thanks to you, thanks to Bob and the rest of the team.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, well,
Talk to
thanks.
you again soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.